Since ancient times, humanity has tried to depict what lies beyond the visible, God's mysterious forces, forbidden rituals. Art reflecting collective beliefs and fears serves as a unique witness to these hidden imaginations. In this video, I invite you on a journey through the history of art and Western painting, where magic, witchcraft and demons reveal themselves through the works. Not everything that evokes death, horror, or the macabre necessarily falls under the occult. A macabre painting can simply explore fear or human fragility without referring to esoteric beliefs or symbols. The term occult comes from the Latin occultus, meaning hidden, secret, concealed. In its modern use, the occult refers to practices, knowledge, or mysterious hidden phenomena linked to the supernatural, magic, or invisible forces, often associated with esotericism and accessible only to initiates. The term occultism itself only appears in 1842 in the French Dictionnaire des mots nouveaux, referring to the practice and theorization of occult sciences, from astrology to Kabbalah, and including divinatory arts, alchemy, sacred geometry, and magic. In ancient Rome, the influence of Dionysian and Mithric mysteries can be seen in wall paintings and sculptures depicting secret initiation rites. In antiquity, the occult was not separate from science or religion. Votive objects, amulets, and magical inscriptions show the central role of the occult in daily and religious life. Evidence of divinatory practices like astrology, haruspicy, reading animal entrails, or necromancy is often linked to temples and cults. In ancient societies that practiced magic, the difference between the sorcerer and the priest did not lie in the nature of their practice, but in the context within which they operated. The priest acted in the public sphere, while the sorcerer acted in the private sphere. The magic of the sorcerer and the witch was associated with knowledge of plants, trance, and the power of the mother goddess. With the rise of Christianity, the church saw the gods of other religions as demons, and the older cults and practices as acts of the devil. The priests of Greco-Roman, Germanic, Celtic, and Slavic rites were considered sorcerers, and ancient shamanism practiced among the less educated classes was labeled witchcraft. These practices came to embody the antithesis of Christian values and rituals: black masses, witches' sabbats, nocturnal gatherings, blasphemous parodies of the Mass. The hierarchy of sorcerers was imagined as the counterpart of God's clergy, but serving the devil. Early Christian authors like St. Augustine focused on the battle between good and evil, often seen as the conflict between God and demonic forces. They linked certain magical or occult practices to the influence of evil, while distinguishing legitimate religious rites from superstition. The devil is seen as a fallen angel who rebelled against God and can take the form of any being, even a beautiful woman, to better deceive his victim. Yet many medieval artists chose to depict him in the most terrifying form possible to convey his menace. His body resembles that of a beast, with a tail, long ears, claws, and hooves. Often shown with wings, the devil was also depicted with feathers, like an angel in the early Middle Ages. But from the 12th century onward, his skin was imagined as thick leather. The idea of selling one's soul to the devil long fascinated Europe. Hagiographic stories from the 6th to 10th centuries tell of the deacon Theophilus. After falling out of favor with his archbishop, he makes a pact with the devil, aided by a magician, exchanging his soul for power. Theophilus soon repents, turns to the Virgin Mary, and succeeds in having the pact annulled. From the 12th century, Christian Europe saw a revival of ancient knowledge through Arabic translations. Astrology, alchemy, and magic began to enter royal courts and universities. Up until the 13th to 14th centuries, many behaviors considered abnormal at the time, convulsions, fits, violent actions, were interpreted as demonic possession. Christian exorcism existed since antiquity and in the Middle Ages became a strictly regulated practice by the Church. Prayers, crosses, holy water, salt, relics, and laying on of hands. Liturgical formulas circulated in the early Middle Ages and developed into more complete rituals over the centuries. By the mid-15th century, the devil scared priests so much that some clergy began writing manuals on exorcism. One example, published around 1450, advised exorcists to study their enemy carefully in preparation for battling demonic forces. Illuminated manuscripts and church decorations are full of astrological signs, talismans, and strange creatures. The Apocalypse of John became a source of terrifying and symbolic imagery, featuring devils, monsters, and grotesque figures as symbols of a world where good and evil clash. In the 13th century, cathedrals added gargoyles to remind worshippers of the constant presence of dark forces in Christian imagination, as seen at Notre Dame de Paris. Quick side note, by the way, don't confuse the gargoyles that adorn the gutters with the chimerae, which are purely decorative statues, as they don't spit water and were added in a neo-Gothic style by architect Eugène Viollet-le-Duc during his 19th century restoration of the cathedral. They didn't exist in the Middle Ages. Sorry, guys. The Middle Ages were also a time of strict religious and social oversight. The Inquisition, gradually established from the 12th century, aimed to enforce Christian orthodoxy and hunt down practices deemed heretical, magical, or occult, which were harshly punished. In this context, the occult became both a source of fascination and danger. Witches, demons, and monstrous creatures in illuminations and frescoes were not merely decorative. They reflected collective fears and served as moral warnings. Apocalyptic scenes warned of demons and temptations, while the Danse Macabre reminded viewers that death strikes all men, whether through sin, heresy, or divine punishment. Bosch, meanwhile, multiplied hellish visions, the Garden of Earthly Delights, the Temptation of Saint Anthony, and the Hywen Triptych are full of monsters and supernatural creatures. During the Renaissance, a new humanist spirit pushed artists to explore alchemy, Kabbalah, and occult sciences. In the 16th and 17th centuries, Europe was shaken by religious wars and witch hunts, and art became a mirror of these tensions. Witches are often associated with the Middle Ages, but the real witch hunts occurred during the Renaissance, an era often seen as humanist and rational. In the Middle Ages, women suspected of witchcraft weren't persecuted. They were marginalized and pitied as outcasts. The actual trials began in the 1430s and developed mainly in the 16th and 17th centuries, with witchcraft becoming a major target of civil justice. Between 1430 and 1630, Europe saw around 110,000 witch trials, nearly half ending in execution, not counting private killings and lynchings. Artists of this period incorporated occult symbols into their works. Albrecht Dürer, for instance, explored hidden symbols. In The Four Witches, enigmatic figures appear to take part in a ritual. In his engraving Melancholia, Dürer combines scientific instruments with esoteric symbols, reflecting the belief that human knowledge brushes against divine mystery. In Cranach, the Elder's version, directly inspired by Dürer, the sky shows a nocturnal assembly of witches flying on strange animals, one carrying a horse skull. They head to an isolated place like Germany's legendary Brocken Mountain for a Sabbath, where the devil, represented as a goat, presides over the ceremony, accompanied by succubi female demons and incubi male demons. With Pieter Bruegel, the fall of angels becomes a vision of cosmic chaos. This painting is part of a series called The Trilogy of the Search for God, exploring vices past to salvation and the presence or absence of God. In the Baroque period, religious and social tensions remained high. Numerous witch trials created an atmosphere of suspicion and anxiety. Artists took up the theme of witchcraft to reflect and feed collective fears. Works by Frans Francken, like Witches' Sabbath, show aesthetic fascination with evil and the forbidden, blending grotesque and fantastical elements to captivate viewers while illustrating the dangers of moral and religious transgression. These depictions were not only meant to frighten, they also expressed curiosity for the supernatural and unexplored. Italian artist Salvator Rosa, known for dark landscapes and fantastic scenes, used witchcraft to explore the limits of nature and human imagination, playing on both fear and wonder. By the late 17th and early 18th centuries, depictions of the occult temporarily declined in European art. With the sharp decrease in witch trials, collective imagination turned away from occult forces. The rise of the Enlightenment favored reason and science, relegating supernatural beliefs to mere superstition. Artists focused on moral, historical, or neoclassical themes, and the fantastical exuberance of the Baroque gradually faded. Let's take advantage of this European interlude to turn our attention to Japan, where the traditions of yurei, ghosts, and oni demons flourished. From the 17th century onward, ukiyo-e prints abundantly depicted these supernatural figures, inspired by centuries-old folklore and theatrical stories. These images express both fear and fascination with the invisible world, while conveying moral, tragic, or frightening tales deeply rooted in Japanese culture. Yurei are often shown wearing white kimonos, symbolizing traditional Japanese funeral garments, and are linked to stories of vengeance or unfinished business. Among notable works is The Ghost of Oyuki by Maruyama Okyo, a silk scroll painting from the late 18th century, depicting a female ghost whose body fades into transparency. It is one of the first representations of a yurei with the typical features of late Edo period ghosts: disheveled hair, white kimono, dangling hands, nearly transparent body, and no lower body. Back in Europe, the late 18th century and 19th century saw growing fascination with the irrational and the mysteries of nature. The 18th century Enlightenment failed to provide fully satisfying explanations, and religion, once reassuring, had weakened. With the rise of pre-Romanticism and Romanticism, the occult took on a poetic dimension. Artists became interested in ghosts, invisible forces, and the irrational, reacting against Enlightenment rationalism and the Industrial Revolution. Fuseli with The Nightmare paved the way for Gothic imagery depicting a demon sitting on a sleeping woman's chest. The painting caused a major scandal at the time. In line with the terrible sublime aesthetic, Goya's work features Sabbaths, demons, and witches. In his series of engravings Los Caprichos, Goya critiques superstition while playing with nightmarish imagery. One of his masterpieces, Witch's Sabbath, shows a witchcraft ritual led by a great goat, one of the devil's forms, at the center of the composition. Around him, young and old witches feed him his favorite dish, children. This painting is part of a series of 6 works with similar dimensions and themes. Between 1805 and 1810, English artist and poet William Blake created a series of watercolors titled The Great Red Dragon, illustrating scenes from the Book of Revelation. These works, part of a commission for over 100 Bible illustrations, became icons of the struggle between heavenly and infernal forces. Alexandre Cabanel, in his Fallen Angel of 1847, offers a haunting vision of Lucifer after his fall. Painted in oil and within the French Romantic movement, the work humanizes the demon, highlighting intense emotion. Half angel, half demon, he expresses pain, regret, and wounded pride. By the late 19th century, there was a true craze for occultism and spiritualism in the West. Communicating with spirits, manifestations from the beyond, and table-turning fascinated a wide audience. This trend began especially in the United States with spiritualism and mediums, like the Fox sisters in the 1850s to 1860s. Neo-occultism then developed in France with the popularity of spiritualism codified by Allan Kardec and interest in esotericism, secret societies, and occult imagery. Movements such as the founding of the Kabbalistic Order of the Rose Cross and the Theosophical Society gained momentum. This fascination with spiritualism is also reflected in 19th century photography, which claimed to capture spirits through manipulated images. Artists of the period embraced the subject, turning art into a theater of magical visions. Luis Ricardo Falero's Witches. Going to Their Sabbath depicts a group of witches, almost all nude, flying to participate in a Sabbath. The symbolists in particular, but also nabis and pre-Raphaelites, made the occult their favorite subject. The paintings of this artistic movement are filled with occult themes including death, interactions between the living and the dead, depictions of demons and other diabolical creatures, esoteric rituals, black magic and witchcraft, dreams and mystical visions, alchemy and spiritual transformation, mythology and esoteric legends. In the 20th century, occult imagery spread widely through international popular culture, notably through Art Nouveau posters and occult illustrations in books. The occult continued to inspire avant-garde movements and became a driving force for abstraction. Guided by mystical experiences, Hilma F. Klint painted her altarpieces. Surrealists fascinated by the unconscious embraced esoteric themes. Max Ernst, André Masson, and Salvador Dalí explored dreams, alchemical symbols, and hallucinatory visions. Already at the end of the 19th century, the figure of the witch had become a symbol of resistance for women. In the United States, suffragist Matilda Joslyn Gage portrayed her as a powerful woman fighting for the right to vote. This vision contrasts with historical reality, where accused witches rarely sought to overturn the established order. In the 20th century, feminism reclaimed this image, notably with the Witch Collective in New York in 1968, which claimed that every woman is a witch in potential. In the early 1970s, the movement resonated in Europe, where the witch became a feminist figure, representing a powerful woman resisting patriarchy. At the same time, the witch and the world of the occult became firmly rooted in popular culture through series, books, and films balancing fascination and entertainment. Some offer a frightening vision, playing on mystery and fear, while others take a lighter, humorous approach, integrating magic into everyday life. Contemporary art has also embraced this imagery, offering ambivalent interpretations. Some artists use it to convey critical or committed messages, while others play with clichés of witches and the occult, twisting or reinventing them. The occult has not lost its symbolic power and continues to inspire deeply evocative contemporary works. Halfway between fantasy and science fiction, Luis Royo's Fallen Angels reinvents a dark fantastical universe. Brazilian artist Luciana Lupe Vasconcelos depicts a primordial goddess emerging from the bloody waters of creation, blending mystery and mythical power. As recently as this year, in her retrospective presencia at the Palais de Tokyo, Miriam Mihindu explored themes such as violence, memory, identity, and the female condition through a multidisciplinary artistic practice influenced by her Gabonese roots and shamanic traditions. Across the centuries, the occult has fueled artists' imaginations, whether through apocalyptic visions, terrifying Sabbaths, or mystical experiences. The occult in art is not just superstition, it's a way of thinking about the world, giving form to the invisible and questioning the limits of human knowledge. What about you? Do you think art can reveal truths that reason cannot grasp? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next ones. Thanks for watching.